Hello again everyone, it's Matsimus and thank you for joining me on this video. I hope you're having a great day. We're going back to the world of self-propelled guns and what a mammoth this thing is. We are talking today about the 2S19 Msta-S 152mm self-propelled howitzer. And this thing is a behemoth. It's just absolutely gigantic and I love it. Now in terms of Russian artillery, the Russians always get it right. I'm sorry, they know how to make very good and very big artillery systems, and this one without a doubt is definitely ticking that box. So let's just get into it then and talk about this absolutely beautiful Russian piece of artillery. The 152mm 2S19 Msta-S, named after the Russian river Msta, is a self-propelled howitzer that entered service with the Russian army in 1989. While the Russian army hoped to replace all of its 122mm and 152mm self-propelled artillery with this howitzer, budgetary constraints mean this replacement will not actually be completed anytime soon, even in the near future. At least one 2S19 equipped regiment served in Chechnya as part of the 8th Army Corps. Following a very common standard practice of Russian artillery doctrine in the Cold War era, it was to get as many rounds downrange and bigger as possible to try and actually disperse and engage targets before they even got to the front line. Artillery was extremely valuable for the Russian military because really they had defined the fact that if they can put enough rounds downrange to annihilate the enemy before they get there, it's really going to defeat the morale and the purpose of the armoured force coming towards them, which during the Cold War armoured forces were one of the biggest contributing factors for victory. The Msta-S comprises of a turret mounted on a tracked armoured chassis based on the elements of the T-72 and T-80 main battle tanks. It is manufactured in Ultramanmash in Ekaterinburg, Russia. The 2S19's gun crew can load the gun at any angle of elevation. Ammunition and gun loading, laying and retargeting are highly automated, allowing for a maximum rate of 8 rounds per minute, with onboard rounds of 6 to 7 rounds per minute with rounds from the ground. The system provides automatic gun loading for projectiles and semi-automatic loading for charges. The design of the ammunition rack allows for different types of projectiles to be stored in the same rack. The automatic loading mechanism can select the type of ammunition and control the loading and number of rounds. A major drawback to the Kranspol semi-active laser-guided projectiles was the incompatibility with this autoloader. This is basically because of the projectile's length. The Kranspol M 152mm to 155mm round was developed as a follow-on product that was an improvement but fully capable with the 2S19 autoloader. A battery can deliver projectiles on a target and move on to the next firing point before the reaction firing begins. This is basically the shoot and scoop maneuver, which was very common in most vehicles at this time period. The standard days of keeping artillery places on point was really redundant, and to try and keep vehicles moving was extremely important. The howitzer's armour does give a bit of protection against armour-piercing bullets and projectiles, including return artillery fire and dispersion from potential cluster bomblets. The 2S19 can also produce a smokescreen by injecting diesel fuel into the exhaust outlet to defend itself. The 21 horsepower gas turbine AP-18 auxiliary unit provides a power for turret operations when the vehicle engine is shut down, otherwise known as silent watch, which allows the vehicle to basically operate all of its gun systems and ancillaries without having to make too much noise to be located by an enemy force. Like most vehicles, this vehicle can run on 6 different types of fuel, including gasoline, aviation fuel, and spirit alcohol. Yum yum. This self-propelled gun is a combined version of the 2A65 towed 152mm gun with the new chassis based on the T-72 and T-80 tank components. The 2S19 was developed to combine the roles of the 2S3 and the 2S5 in a single vehicle. A major aspect of the program was to develop an automated ammunition handling system and improved fire controls to provide the capability to avoid counter-battery rapid-fire relocation, which was becoming very apparent in the Western world. In 1985, work began on a new self-propelled 152mm howitzer that would replace the well-known 2S3 Koalitsiya. Even though it had undergone several modernization programs and updates, the 2S3 had fallen behind the equivalent of other contemporary artillery weapons. In part, this was due to the fact that the 2A33 howitzer was a modified version of the D20 towed 152mm howitzer developed in 1955, and the chassis was part of the GM300 series, which had first seen service as the chassis of the 2K11 Krug or the SA-4 surface-to-air missile complex in 1964. Therefore, the decision was made to develop a completely new self-propelled artillery weapon. The weapon began development under the codename Firma or Dairy Farm. and, under the direction of Chief Designer Yuri Timoshov, Deputy Chief Designer at the Terekov plant, the resulting work produced a completely new vehicle. This was accepted for service in 1989 as the Msta-S, where the S stands for self-propelled. This was to differentiate from the 2A65 Msta-B, which is the basically towed version of this vehicle. Now, to get this beast moving, it is given quite the power plant. The 2S19 is powered by a 12-cylinder V-type V84 Alpha diesel engine producing 840 horsepower, which, as mentioned before, can use pretty much all types of fuel. The V84 Alpha is also used in the latest models of the T-72 tank. It can also be replaced with the V46 family of engines, which produce around 780 over the 840 horsepower of the new engine. The gearbox has 7 forward speeds and 1 in reverse, and the electricity is powered via 4 accumulator batteries producing around 27 volts direct current power. The vehicle surprisingly uses the same suspension components of the T80. The first, second and sixth road wheels are equipped with regulated telescopic shock absorbers, which are controlled when firing the weapon by blanking off their oscillations. This means that the weapon does not need to use auxiliary firing jacks or spades for stabilization. The 2S19 uses 580mm wide tracks with rubber inside facing, which is identical with that used on the T80 tank and 2S7. The suspension can handle firing of all types of projectiles without the necessity to having previously prepared a firing position. So, the main gun of this beast consists of the 2A64 152mm howitzer mounted within the turret, and a 12.7mm NSVT anti-aircraft machine gun mounted in the PZU-5 anti-aircraft mount on the commander's cupola. The 2A64 is a modified version of the 2A65 towed howitzer. Fire can be conducted with this weapon using the 30F to 45 high exposure fragmentation round up to around 24,700 meters, and the 30F61 to a range of around 28,900 meters. The 30F23 cassette round, carrying 42 anti-armor submunitions and reaching out to 26,000 meters, can also be fired. Active radio jamming projectiles from the 3NS30 family can also be fired up to around 22,300 meters. There are multiple other special projectiles, but most of them are standardized as mentioned. It can use all standard ammunitions for the D20 and 253 howitzers, as well as guided projectiles like the Kranspol laser guided projectile. Target illumination for these rounds can be carried out by an artillery observer using the 1D15 or 1D22 laser devices. Thanks to semi-automatic shell handling system, the crew of the weapon can achieve a rate of fire between 7 to 8 rounds per minute with an internal ammunition supply of 6 to 7 rounds per minute when conveying shells up from the ground. This translates to an 8-tube battery of these howitzers being able to place nearly 3 tons of steel on target in 1 minute. At maximum range, that's nearly 70 shells in the air at one time before the first one actually hits the target. At a firing range 200 km from Abu Dhabi, a demonstration was held of the firepower of the 2S19 at the 1993 International Defense Exhibition. Using 40 Kranspol laser-guided projectiles, the 2S19 hit 38 targets at a range of 15 km. Since the main supply is located in the turret, it can be selected and loaded no matter which direction the turret is pointed in relation to the hull without a problem. The loading mechanism also supports the conductor to fire at any angle or traverse or elevation at a maximum rate of fire. To assist the loader, who would have to handle the 43.5 kg round, they are also loaded very quickly in the automatic system. The ejection port for expended cases is located in the turret above the howitzer. Having the ground conveyor provides for the conduct of fire using the selection of the onboard ammunition and not wasting the onboard supply. When preparing for movement, the ground projectile conveyor is stowed on the back of the turret, whereas the ground charge conveyor is stored inside the turret. The vehicle has 2 sighting systems, the 1P22, which is located in a rotating armoured cover in the roof of the turret, and the 1P23 for direct fire sight, which is an observation window which is located in the glass plate of the turret. The 1P22 is a 3.7 power optic which has an automated stabilization feature in the horizontal plane, which works when the vehicle is not canted more than 5 degrees in either direction. In travel mode, to the right hand side of the sight is a protective curtain which can be wrapped around the sight to protect the viewpiece. The 1P23 has a power optic which can track through angles of elevation of -4 to +53 degrees. The 2EH46 howitzer drive mechanism is electronically and automatically controlled in the vertical plane. Horizontal movement is directed from a control panel. The automatic return to the correct angle of elevation after each round is fired simplifies the work of the gunner. When firing, the gunner only has to perform a single operation. He has to keep the panoramic sight leveled on his aiming point. The commander also has the mechanisms for aiming and firing the weapon. When the electrical system is turned off, there are backup manual controls for the weapons for loading and aiming. The vehicle is equipped with a data transmission and receiving system. The data can send via landline or by radio via the IV-122 device over long distances and up to short distances of 500 meters. This includes a system to control gun laying, which is coordinated with the fire direction center vehicle. The PZU-5 is provided for defense against lightly armored vehicles, helicopters and aircraft. The machine gun can be sighted in a range of around 2,000 meters and a rate of fire of 700 to 800 rounds per minute. The vehicle is part of an artillery battery firing complex, otherwise known as an OBAC. The complete OBAC consists of a commander's vehicle based on the BTR-80 chassis, and then a senior officer of the battery's vehicle based on the Ural truck. There will also be up to 8 firing weapons. Any size artillery combined unit may be formed with these OBAC organisations. The 2S19 is offered for export. In this condition, the vehicle is priced at $1.6 million. Special export versions of the 2S19 in the 155mm caliber are also being offered, which will then permit the weapon to handle any NATO ammunition of that type of caliber. By February 1991, the Soviet Army had accepted some 371 2S19s and 2A65 weapons into service, and by the 1st of January 1995, there were 563. Russian artillery designers have begun working on a new improved version of this weapon, the 2S30 In addition, enhancements to the 2S19's ability to fire guided projectiles such as the Kranspol, utilizing a remotely piloted vehicle as a source of laser target illumination, was also being put under development for the 2S19 and its future follow-on systems. So overall, what do I think of this vehicle? Well, first of all, it is definitely extremely capable of doing what it needs to do, which is basically put as many rounds down range, as big of a size as possible to stop the enemy advance, and really, this vehicle ticks that boxes in every regard. The 152 or 155mm round is definitely a very capable round to do that. You know, it can take out tanks, infantry, armored personnel carriers, defenses. That's a lot of firepower to put down range. I love that this vehicle has an auto-loading capability. You've got to admit, guys, nowadays with modern-day artillery, auto-loaders are definitely the way forward. There's no point putting these guys manually loading these rounds in place when an automatic system can do the job for you, and in an artillery sense, it really does make sense. Unfortunately though, it seems as though this vehicle has kind of lost touch with its shoot and scoot capability. You know, I see a lot of these vehicles just kind of parked up 7 or 8 at a time, punching rounds down range. That doesn't say shoot and scoot to me, that says park up, make a long distance defensive artillery barrage and fire from distance. But nowadays that's not really the way forward, because we're always looking for that counter battery attack that could be coming at any minute. But overall, guys, I've got to admit, the impressive features of this vehicle definitely set itself apart from some of the, more lightweight artillery self-propelled guns out there. Some impressive ranges, 2,800 meters or 26,000 meters for certain other artillery rounds that can be fired out of this thing. I've got to admit, I really do enjoy the fact that they're upgrading the munitions to go into this vehicle too, to increase its range, and guided weapons that can actually be placed into it, which is, today's standards when it comes to friendly fire and stuff. That's definitely something they're going to want to have. Really, guys, this is an extremely formidable piece of equipment. It's probably going to be in service quite a while longer, and the fact that it runs off the T80 chassis and power plant is quite impressive to me. I really like that, and I'm actually a big fan of the T80, so it makes sense. So yeah, great piece of equipment, guys. Very interesting bit of kit. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I'd really appreciate if you could leave me a comment and a like. Let me know what you think about it. And if you want to support my channel, because YouTube is instantly going to demonetize this video as soon as I put it up, then feel free to go hit my Patreon page in the description box below. I'd really appreciate it. And thanks to everyone who has been donating recently. It means so much to me. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I really hope you enjoyed today's video. All the best, and bye-bye.